You know Dracula, the famous vampire from movies and books, but did you know he was based on a real person who was far more terrifying than any fictional monster? This is the true story of Vlad the Impaler, a ruler so brutal that his name still strikes fear into hearts over 500 years later. But here's what's really shocking. He might have actually been one of the good guys. Our story begins in 1431 in a land called Wallachia, which is now part of Romania. A boy named Vlad was born into a world of constant war and betrayal. His father was called Dracul, meaning dragon or devil, which made young Vlad Dracula, son of the dragon. When Vlad was just 11 years old, something happened that would shape him into the monster he became. His father handed him and his brother over to the Ottoman Empire as hostages. For 6 years, Vlad lived as a prisoner, watching the Turks plan to conquer his homeland. But what exactly did they do to him during those 6 years that turned him into such a ruthless killer? When Vlad finally returned home in 1448, his father was dead and his older brother had been buried alive by enemies. At 17, Vlad claimed his throne, but he faced an impossible situation. The massive Ottoman Empire was closing in on his small country, and traitors were everywhere, ready to sell out Wallachia for Turkish gold. That's when Vlad made a decision that would make him the most feared man in Europe. He began using a method of execution that was so terrifying, so brutal, that just hearing about it would make enemy armies turn around and go home. He would take his victims and impale them on long wooden stakes, leaving them to die slowly as a warning to others. Thousands upon thousands met this fate. But here's the twist that most people don't know. Almost everyone he killed was either an invader or a traitor. Ottoman soldiers, corrupt nobles who sold out their own people, criminals who preyed on the innocent. Vlad wasn't just being cruel for fun. He was using terror as a weapon to protect his homeland. The stories spread like wildfire. They said he dined among forests of impaled bodies, that he dipped his bread in the blood of his enemies. Turkish mothers would frighten their children by saying Vlad would come for them if they misbehaved, and his psychological warfare worked. When the Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II, the same man who conquered Constantinople, invaded Wallachia with an army of 90,000 men, he found 20,000 impaled Turkish prisoners arranged in a massive field. The sight was so horrifying that the Sultan, who had seen countless battles, turned his army around and retreated. But Vlad's reign of terror couldn't last forever. In 1476, while fighting to reclaim his throne one final time, he was killed in battle. Some say he was betrayed by his own men. Others claim he fought to the very end. His head was cut off and sent to Constantinople as proof of his death. The man who had terrorized the Ottoman Empire for decades was finally gone. But death wasn't the end of Vlad's story. It was just the beginning of his legend. Over the centuries, tales of the bloodthirsty prince grew darker and more supernatural. By 1897, when Irish author Bram Stoker wrote his famous novel, Vlad the Impaler had been transformed into Count Dracula, the immortal vampire who drinks blood and fears only sunlight and wooden stakes. The brutal defender of Wallachia had become the king of monsters, proving that sometimes the truth really is stranger than fiction. So the next time you see a vampire movie, remember, the real Dracula was far more terrifying than any creature of the night because he was absolutely, terrifyingly human.